Welcome to the Author Next Door,
where we talk writing, publishing, and the business behind the books.
This podcast is for writers who are a few steps ahead into the journey. Maybe you've published, maybe you're planning what's next, and you realize the questions aren't getting easier. They're just getting more interesting.
Sometimes it's just our fabulous selves. Sometimes we bring friends to the table, but it's always lived experience and information you can use.
So pull up a chair. The conversation starts now. Welcome to episode 58 of the Author Next Door. I'm Cassie Newell. I'm here with my co-host, Angela Haas. And this month, we're talking romance. More specifically, we're digging into what it actually takes to write a romance series. Not just one great love story, but multiple books that keep readers emotionally invested and coming back for more. Because here's the truth. One strong book one is only the beginning. The real challenge is sustaining chemistry, tension, and reader trust across multiple couples in the same world without everyone starting to feel repetitive or flat. So just to lead off with a question here, Angela, why do you think so many romance series struggle after book one, even when readers love that first couple?
Well, it could be many different things depending on the genre, but it could be that the first couple was so amazing, so off the charts, and either the couple two is either too similar or too
Yeah.
disconnected. I think it's hard to keep it fresh in a series. Most romances, they start with a series is a new couple in an interconnected world, don't you think? I haven't
Yes.
read a series where it's the same couple. It's like the brother gets the story, the sister gets a story. It's spin-offs of family members or friends, but unless it's fantasy. Now in
I was going to say,
fantasy,
unless it's a
right.
bigger world,
Yeah,
because immediately I think of like The Fourth Wing, which I wouldn't classify as a romance. It has romantic elements, and I think that's the difference. If it's a true romance, it's
right.
so difficult to have a series of the same couple across 3 books because we want that happily ever after, right? That
Right.
or the happily for now. There's no
Yeah,
conflict to carry through, right? There's
right.
no new thread, new hook to carry through. I think
And if
it
there is
can be really
conflict,
difficult.
if there is conflict, it almost has to partially resolve.
Yeah.
And then there's a new conflict arc or a new villain. And that's what's helpful about writing in romantasy or fantasy or even sci-fi is the world
Yeah.
is bigger. The world building takes a lot of the pressure off of just the couple being at the center because you can
Yeah.
have big epic settings, conflicts. In Fourth Wing, obviously, there's dragons, and the dragons are the thing
Well,
that
there's so
people
much
also
more
love.
to it
Yes,
than the
but
subplot.
there's
Yeah.
other things that it's not just the couple.
Mhm.
It's the threat of danger. It's the tournaments or, something they have to survive. Whereas romantic comedy, it's just a couple. What I've seen is if you're just doing contemporary or romantic comedy, the first couple sets it off and starts building the world, and then the spin-offs happen or the next books in the series, but they're
Yeah.
all related in some way. Same with mafia or dark romance. It's another
The
member of the
family.
mafia family,
Yeah.
right? So what do we tackle first? What do you think? I mean, I guess we speak
Yeah.
to what we're writing, and it's like, how do we keep the setting vibrant and alive, but start with a whole new couple with a whole new set of problems? I mean, you've done
Yeah.
this really well in your interconnected world.
Yeah.
So
So
what was that process like for you?
for me, it's all about romancing the trope. It's the tropes I want to dive into. It
Mhm.
was always my first thought process because I knew my world would grow as my books grow. 'cause they're different areas of the town, just like Scottsdale. It's huge, right? I mean, it's one little corner of
Mhm.
Scottsdale from these
Yeah.
characters' point of view. So I had in my first series the centralization of my romance bookstore slash
Mhm.
bakery, right? That was kind of the central hub. And then we start to expand out from that and the other characters in the town and all those different things. So for me, it was about the tropes that I wanted to tackle and the personalities of the couples. So I needed them to be complementary, specifically for my four best friends, knowing each one
Mhm.
was getting a book. I was like,
Yeah.
they can't be the same person
Right.
every book, but it has to be people that you would know they're best friends because best friends don't have the exact same personalities, right? There's going to be a loud one. There's going to be a calm one. There's going to be one that flies off the handle. There's always, and then there's probably a more steady person too that kind of connects everything. So if you just look at friend groups in general, I
Mhm.
think that's why
Yeah.
I love sport team romances
Right.
too, because I love
Mhm.
that found family in those dynamics. And I love like the brothers. Those are very common like tropes to follow the brothers and their romances and things like that. And I think that's why mafia romance is kind of fun to read
Yeah.
too, because
Yeah.
of that family. There's going to be a crazy one. There's going to
Right.
be the strong and silent, the one that's
Mhm.
bucking against the family, the one
Mhm.
that's all in the family, but not the oldest, like
Right.
all those
Yeah.
fun dynamics. So for me, it's like starts with the tropes and then I get into the dynamics of personality and how that family kind of builds out. And for me, that's kind of the world too. And I think that's why I enjoy it. And when I read, most recently, I was reading Amy Dawes and her Mountain Men book, and I love The
Mhm.
7 Year Itch. If I can get book 1 and it's, like, really up my alley, then and if that hooks me, then I'll just keep going, but sometimes
Yeah.
I just wanna hit my particular trope that I'm interested in reading too, and I
Yeah.
like series that will kind of catch you up and act like you've been here the whole time. When it becomes one of those things where it's like, "Oh, you needed to read book 1," or what have you, something like A Fourth Wing or even Quicksilver by Callie Hart, like those specific books where you really need to follow the adventure, that's different. But if it's something I can just, peek my little toe into really quickly to see if I'm interested, I don't know. I've gotten to that
Yeah.
stage where I'll just jump in.
Right. And I think that's part of the planning, right? And
Yeah.
when I say planning, it probably is making the pantser's eyes twitch, right? And that I'm speaking from a discovery writer perspective because whatever came to me, I was
Mm,
getting it on paper and letting it guide me. But I feel like to save me from rewrites and the potential of losing an opportunity because I put out a book and then I want to change something or I come up with an idea that could connect another book to that,
mm,
I advise trying to sit back before you start writing and doing some pre-planning. And that's one of the questions you have to ask yourself.
yeah.
Do I want to make it so that you have to read book 1 in order to understand book 2? Or is my series going to be a situation with a lot of the romantic comedy and contemporary romance writers that I've read that are doing series, you can kind of just jump in. You may
Mhm.
be lost on a couple minor elements, but for the most part, you can start the series anywhere. I tend to want to start at book 1 just so
Yeah.
I'm a rule follower in some ways. So, like, I like to start in book 1, and then I'm just starting with the natural progression. And then you have to ask yourself, "Okay, what do I start with the character or do I start with the world, the
Mm,
setting?"
yeah.
Because at some point, if you're starting with the characters and their family, then you have to decide, well, who's getting the spinoffs? Is it family? Is it friends? Is it mix of both?
Yeah.
If you're starting with 3 brothers, you may have to do little dossiers on each brother to be how are they different? How are they the same? How
Right.
are they connected to the parents if the parents are still alive? So that's part of your process of really nailing down the family and the family tree. If it's setting that you're starting with, like where did this take place? Is it a ranch? By the way, sidebar, I'm wearing my Firebird Ranch sweatshirt that Cassie got me for Christmas, which is where my Colorado No Climb Too High is set in and will be set on that ranch. So I already have some merch. But but honestly, when I sat down to write that book, I envisioned it spawning off into other places that weren't a part of the same setting. And then when I started to do my research, what I realized and what I learned is that readers do like
Mhm.
coming back to the same town because they start to get to
Yeah.
know it. It feels familiar. It's just like watching like Gilmore Girls or Sex in the City, right? In Sex in the
Yeah.
City, New York City was the fifth character, right? And
Mhm.
so you want to keep coming back to Carrie's apartment and the coffee shops and the different places that they're gathering. Those become a part of what you love as familiar about the series. That's why, people
Right.
love coming back to your hub. And that's why you also need to start with what's going to be the hub, the place where it all starts from and maybe goes back to. So I think the pre-planning stages of whether or not you're going to make this book into a series, those are some of the most crucial that's a crucial step. And
Yeah,
then
and
deciding where to go.
I also think before you get too bogged down in all
Yeah.
the pre-planning, you also have to determine who's a true side character versus who's a future lead
Mhm.
too. So like there's a difference between somebody who's a supporting character versus someone who's actually capable of carrying their own book, right? And their own story. As you said, like you have to consider that too. If your intention is to write a series, you really have to think about that. And it's interesting because I thought about that up front for my four best friends. And then as I was writing, like I have other side characters that are coming into play all the
Mhm.
time. And I have a central theme with one particular character, an older woman, but she's part of the town. Like she's part of the
Right.
makeup of the town.
Yeah.
But then I would be like, oh, okay, well, I just wrote about his best friend who's a fireman. Okay. I'm tucking that away. I'm saving that in a folder. Like,
Mhm.
and then I'll just
Yeah.
keep writing. Oh, yeah, he's got a sister and she's married and she's fixing to have twins. Oh, let me, make sure that goes somewhere too. And it's
Mhm.
interesting because I do find that when you think about your side characters, they serve a purpose in your current story that you're writing, but they need to be developed if you're going to take them to a future lead or their own love story because if you don't, you're going to struggle with it quite a bit. And I know you were thinking about that too. For Duke, you were like, okay, his brother. And then you were
Mhm.
like, oh, yeah. And then I've got Roxanne and her friends at work and these different, all the
Right.
different threads you can pull on, right? It could
Mhm.
go in 100 different directions, but you have to determine who can really carry their own book and what will be the circumstances.
Yeah, and I sometimes the readers will tell you. I had several reader reviews on My Plus One Equals You that said they wanted Zach, the wildland firefighter, to get his own story, and I that wasn't even on my radar.
Radar. He
Now
has like a minute in the book.
I mean, probably he has, but he has enough lines that are juicy.
Yeah.
He's the crass friend in a way that kinda uses humor to deflect that he's the last single guy in the group now,
Mm,
but he has enough juicy lines that I think people remembered him and were
mm,
intrigued by him, but he's not
interesting.
there very much. When I set up well, I don't wanna give it a all away, but when I set up a character who's gonna have a big role in book 2, I brought her in towards the end.
Mm,
And I gave her just enough so that you know something's coming, and you knew where she has been also. You may
yeah.
have to explain if they're not in the book, where have they been that makes sense? so that
Right.
they can come in. But you have to be careful with this too. Something I learned that if you give someone too much, I say screen time, it's book time, but I'm always
Yeah.
equating things to visual things, but screen time, and they're not someone that comes back, that can
Yeah.
frustrate people because they're like, wait a minute, we want to see more of this person because they were such a thread. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
that's a great
interesting
point.
how side characters become like these juicy favorites,
Oh, yeah.
right? I love having, and this is probably my own picadillo as a writer, but I love having those open threads so that I can go back to this waitress or this
Hmm.
hostess or this. And I don't expect really to do much until I get to that point. And it was interesting because in my my trope of my brother's best friend in Forbidden
Hmm.
Love and Lattes,
Yeah.
the audiobook was a pretty good hit in that
Hmm.
people really liked the brother character, which was
Right.
Dalton, and I hadn't quite known what I was gonna do with him yet,
Right.
and so
Yeah.
as that was happening, it hit me like, he needs to be my first holiday matchmaker book. I need to take that and connect w the trope that I felt pretty strongly about, but it was interesting because that hit more from an audiobook version because of how the narrator acted and did those creative choices, which was so brilliantly done
Mhm.
that I
Yeah.
don't know that he would have been my first book. Like, I
Right.
had someone else in mind, and then I was like, "No, I think they're gonna be book 2. I think that'll be my challenge for
Yeah.
that," and then I moved in that direction. So, it's kind of interesting how reader feedback does pay into it, but I love having those open threads so that we ourselves have opportunity for creative choices.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and that's why I- originally Duke's brother Charlie had a much bigger role in Climb Too High. But then I realized, well, I'm going to do book 2 not with him but set with some other characters on the ranch. And I dialed back his role and how much time he was in the book, but it's still open that I can go back, that people are familiar enough with him that if he suddenly appears in his own
Yeah.
story, it's not gonna be like, "Well, where was this?" You know?
And you can
But
make that an interconnected new world too with
mhm,
Charlie. I love when writers do that too. Like Bren Weaver does that in
mhm,
some of her books, and I kind of enjoy that. Um, where you can, and not to say that series are the end all be all. Definitely
right,
standalones are great too. And I love when those are really interconnected like that.
mhm,
That you can jump in and around. I also feel like the best comments I get, now granted, I write short romance, so it's a little
right,
different than these full-length novels because that would take forever for people to get through, but I think what's fun is those little Easter eggs that if
mhm,
you stayed with me, it's like coming home. You recognize this. "Oh, that's a fun thing or a new thing." It's just those little Easter eggs I love
yeah,
tying into all that, and I think that's what makes it interesting for me as a writer too. It was interesting because I did a, like, ask me anything questions today on
mhm,
Instagram, and someone said, "Hey, will you go back and write a full novel?" And because I want more of Callie and Macon. And I was like,
right,
"I love that idea, but their journey was done in that
yeah,
book." I mean, it's a completed journey. And I think for me, I wanna be your short girl. I'm gonna deliver every time a full romance
right,
journey short. Um, there'll be spice in it. It's gonna be Southern. It's gonna have a small town take. Like, those things I think are the connective tissue. What you're
yeah,
promising is what you're gonna deliver. Now, every romance and circumstance is gonna vary. It's gonna be different. It's gonna be fresh. They're gonna have new perspectives on things. They're gonna have different life experiences. Like, all of those things are the new things that you come into. And it's funny because one of our friends, I was having a little mini breakdown on something, and she said, remember, readers like the same things. They come back to this. That's the name of
True.
genre. And I'm really, like, buying into that now. I was like, I don't know why I was freaking out, it's true. I've watched myself do it, "Oh, I'm looking for this
Right.
particular trope. I'm looking for this particular feeling," or whatever it is. So, I feel like sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves as writers
Hmm.
to be super unique or what have you in the next book. And really, I would just focus on that character's story and try to continue that world if that's the connective tissue for your series or the feeling and tone. Like whatever that is, make sure that you can market it because we should think about that when we're writing, to
Arf.
connect it as a series
Yeah.
however
Yeah.
that is. Um,
Well, and
I know
you have to
marketing's next month, but hey.
marketing's next month, Cassie. Like, don't even start it. I
Yeah.
think that's something to think about as well. You have to be consistent. So if you're romantic comedy, if that's your main genre, you can't suddenly in the series go into something a little more emotionally intense because
Yeah.
readers may be like, wait, I thought these were all rom coms. Or if you have a series that you've started that's more emotionally intense, and then suddenly you just have something that's totally light and bubbly and doesn't match the rest of the tone of the series, that
Yeah.
may
It's
throw
not
readers off too. You need to be consistent with the tone from start to finish for
yeah.
sure.
'Cause
Um,
it's the payoff. It's the
yeah,
expectation and payoff, right, that your
right.
readers expect. Now you
Yeah,
just threw them in a 360 turnaround in the
yeah,
same series. Yeah, that'll give them whiplash.
yeah, yeah. So when you're thinking of a series, you do need to answer a few of those basic questions before you start. But sometimes what I struggle with in just the visualization when I was like planning a series, because again, I am still a discovery writer, so things happen when I'm writing. But I really had to think, okay, what different tropes am I going to tackle with each couple? And some overlap. I mean, you're always probably going to have some forced
Yeah.
proximity or one bed. Like that's
Okay, that's my
kind of
fave
something.
because of
Yeah.
course.
Right, and that's something I think people
Yeah.
look forward to, but I don't wanna just keep doing second chance every book, or I don't wanna do 4 stories of enemies to lovers, so it has to
Yeah.
be a little different, but still, like you were saying, that familiar, template and the
Yeah.
familiar beats with the tropes. So that's I was struggling with that a little bit until I kind of like, okay, I've got the couple, I've got the basic emotional wounds or what they're trying to overcome and how they fit together and how they
Right.
push each other apart. And then I think I've got 4 books and that was my sweet spot. I always thought series had to be in threes, right? I always thought
Oh,
it had to
yeah.
be 3 or 6, and that's mostly because 'cause I'm more like a symmetrical thinker, like,
Well,
you're
and you
picturing
like
things on the shelf
fantasy and
or in a
thrillers
box. Yeah.
and they're
So,
huge.
yeah. But I was like, "You know what? In today's world, your series can be whatever it needs to be." So if
Yeah.
it's
It could
4
be a
books.
duology. It could be 2 books.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm writing with the Scottsdale one. It's really just gonna be 2 books unless I go crazy and write something for Zach, which I
Just
may,
leave an open
or
end in the second book.
right, but you could, or you can take something if you think, "Well, I love this character and there's some teeth here, but I don't know if it's exactly a book." You can
Yeah.
make it a short story, a reader's
Yeah,
magnet,
a
something to
novella.
give away. Yeah, something small.
Mhm.
They don't all have to be the same thing because everything you're doing is a marketing opportunity. But, you it's something also just thinking about that.
Do
How
you
many
think
books is this
series
gonna be?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do think series gives you the best marketing opportunity, specifically in backlist, if it's interconnected. I do find it's really interesting because, I had this conversation several weeks ago around my first series, and it's still doing really good. And a lot of people are still going into book one, and I'll get
Mhm.
carried through, but I also have a kind of jump arounds too that I can see. And it
Right.
was interesting because the discussion was somebody came into my most recent book, which was is Cupid's Sweet Conspiracy, which is book three in the second series, The Holiday Matchmaker, and they were like, "I didn't realize it was book three. Oh no,"
Yeah.
but then it was like, "That's okay. You don't have to know all the things in
Right.
order to be there." And then they were jumping back to book one, which makes my heart sing, if you can do that. But I think when you have those things that people can grasp onto however direction they come in to find you, that allows them to grab things that they're familiar with that they just got out of,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
I also think speaks to series and how you have that interconnectedness, whatever that is, the tone, the situation, the world itself, the town, whatever that
Mhm.
looks like, because there's comfortability there that people want to continue with. So
Yeah.
I think that's the way to go
That
really
was
in
hard for
series.
me because the way my mind is and my personality, I like variety. So
Yeah,
I didn't wanna write in the same town because I'm like, "Am I gonna get bored?" If I
right,
go to a restaurant, I'm gonna order something different every time, where Tim, the systems person, likes the same thing over and over again. He knows it works, he knows it's good, he's gonna get that, whereas I'm like, "I wanna try a new restaurant, I wanna try something new."
right.
And so where how that filters in as a writer is I always just wanna write a new book. The best coaching advice I got is I mean, honestly, listeners, you can still do whatever you want, but it comes down to still, is this my career or is this my hobby? And if I'm just doing this for fun,
Yeah,
then of course I could write any book I wanted. But then I realized what was going to start happening was I was going to have book ones in like six different possible theories. And that, as a business decision for me, wasn't
yeah,
going to work because it wasn't going to give people something to A, look forward to in the same world. And I wasn't going to get read through if I started book one over here. And then 3 years later, I came out with book two and started this book one and
yeah,
then finished book three over here and something else. I need to
yeah.
follow like a point A to B to C. But, and I don't know if anyone listening can relate, that was hard for my brain because I always want something new because I almost don't even really read through series. I like the first book and maybe two. I want to move on to something else. I
Yeah.
don't need that familiar sometimes. So it took a lot for me to like, I'm gonna stick to this
Yeah.
and and finish a series, damn it.
I know, because your ideas are so big and grandiose too when
No,
you get them. I
I
know
know
it's
they come.
tough.
I know I blow up Cassie's WhatsApp and I'm like, "Okay, picture this." And it's like 10 minutes later, she's like, "What was that?" Like 50
I'm like,
different
"Wait, is
things.
this the book you're writing now?"
I know. She's like,
That's
"No,
usually where
something
I'm at.
completely different. I'm a billionaire." No, Angela.
No. I think though, um, there are a lot of authors though that write standalones. Tessa Bailey, for example, and Candy Steiner has, little standalones too. I think those are great kicking off points. I think the purpose of this discussion is really how to maximize that if you are
Mhm.
interested in writing a series.
Yeah.
One of the questions, just because we were talking about, taking a side character and eventually they could lead. Um, I've also seen where they're other books where they're foreshadowing the next couple and
Mhm.
they tend to hijack the current story. Have you ever seen those? And you're
Yes,
like, why am I bothering with it? Let's just get to the next one. Have you? I've been in those situations.
I've seen that, and I put the book down because I'm like, "Well, who am I supposed to focus on?" And
Yeah.
that's a good it was a good learning for me because when I was writing No Climb Too High, I had a couple that was starting to be like my other favorite, and I had to cut stuff out so it
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
confusing because I really liked them too, but I had to tone it down. because it was going to be too confusing.
You just have to think about the emotional journey and if it stays the same in your series or, because that really changes your external plot structure
Yeah.
on when you're adding other couples. And it's what do you want your reader to focus on? I think you nailed that.
We can't forget about what we want the reader to experience by the time they
Right.
pick up the first book to the second to the third, fourth, how many ever you want to do. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's some finesse to that. And at some point you just gotta start writing. But I think in a series you still need some pre-planning.
Yeah, I think it's helpful. Like, it doesn't have to be a strong pre-plan. I have
No,
to
stick
tell
to your
you,
show.
when I started mine, they were just umbrellas, right?
Yeah,
I just kind of led
absolutely.
little open strings, see if I wanted to pull on it, see if this went anywhere. Did I really want to continue in this vein? All those things. And I think when you do that, especially if you're not sure, write the first book.
Mhm. Yeah,
Right. Write the first book and then kind of assess it when you're editing. Who could be that lead? Who could be the next romance story? And
mm,
could deviate a little bit from the world. But really it's how are you going to interconnect it to a certain degree? So I think sports romance is so easy to see that interconnection because
sure.
it's usually the team. You're following the team. If it's not, you're following the wives of the team,
Right.
or whatever it is that connects them.
I agree. Totally. Well,
So
great
what
discussion.
what would
Oh,
be your biggest tip for somebody who is thinking about writing a romance and they've already finished or a series and they've already finished book 1?
if they've finished book 1 and haven't really planned on having a series, but just like
Yeah. Now they're like,
yeah,
"Oh, I should. Readers are interested."
yeah. I would go through your characters and see who would be the best candidates to lead book 2. And then also ask yourself, okay, do I want this to just be a duology? The brothers get something, the sisters get something. Or did I set up my world in such a way where, okay, I can add new places. I can
Right.
add the flower shop. I can add the bookstore with this person because I introduced them. I can absolutely expand on this. Or is it something where it's like, well, it's not going to be set in the same town because I didn't create enough of a world building setting that I can spin off, but it might be a new location. And then think about the best ways that you might be able to market that concept. But I think the biggest thing too is whatever you're going to do, if you start building a series, be consistent
Yeah.
with your tone and to a certain extent the tropes and how you've handled them and how you handle your HEA. But yeah, once you've got book 1, sit down and start doing some brainstorming and really start planning. That way, you know what you've set up in book 1 and how to carry that through the rest of the books. What about you?
Yeah.
What do you think your biggest?
No, I completely agree. I think too, when you have a book 1 and you're assessing where to
Mhm.
go, if your readers are telling you something, listen. That's built-in readership potentially, right? If they're saying, "I want this character, I must have," and it's more than one person. Like we're talking a number of people that are like really interested in that going forward. Listen, and see if it's viable. I do think that sometimes readers will push for a series because a book was so great. It doesn't mean you always have to fold into that either if you're
Okay.
on to the next book that you are planning a series for. Depends on, what you have interest in too, because if you're moving for a series, you're going to be in the series for a little bit. So you might as well love it. I,
Right. Right.
because otherwise you're going to hate it and you may not finish it the way you really wanted to or intended to. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that way with a lot of our friends in various genres. Love it or move on. So let's do really quickly some personal updates.
Sure.
here at the end of February. What's going on, Angela?
Finally, my writer's block cleared and I'm able to I
Yay!
decided that I need to finish the heartbeat equation, which is the
Oh,
book 2 of My Plus One Equals You, because it's selling really well in Scottsdale. Because it's set in Scottsdale, it's like a little travel guide because I do all my favorite restaurants and landmarks and everything you should do here. And so I better finish this book, and that finishes the series. And so those 2 will help each other sell. That's my concept behind it. Finally started to get some words to that. Otherwise, Threads update.
oh.
So the talk on Threads is well, it's interesting. I open up my feed and I never know what's trending, but the OG thread users, the people who like I remember when new accounts just started. I remember the first day people were using it and we saw the user count go up. And that was really exciting to be part of that first day it went live. But I'm noticing that people are coming in from Instagram and they're coming in from Facebook and TikTok, and they don't know the rules and they're not reading the room. And so I say again that what people love about Threads is it's a words app. It's not video and it's not, is it GIF or GIF? How do you say it? Sidebar.
I think yes.
You say GIF? I
Mhm.
was saying GIF. I guess it's GIF. We'll go with that. But Threads has been the place where people can take a break from the constant onslaught of audio and visual. And it's also typically been a more supportive place, like where we're cheering each other on with accomplishments and things no matter what. But especially in the book community, it was really supportive. Now we're noticing a lot more trolls coming in, a lot more people starting fights. And we're like,
Yeah.
are you from TikTok? Because this is not how we do it here. I'm saying it because I've seen people get in like super fights in the comments on TikTok, right? But it's like, why is this turning from the supportive place we love to now it's just like really different? So
Hmm.
that's been what's going on with Threads. But it's just been interesting that people are still constantly you can really train your algorithm. It really listens to you. You can do Dear Algo and say really what you want to
Right.
see, and it will listen to you. So people are trying to get back. They're like, how do I get back to the good side of Threads? But it's still a reminder, people out there, no matter what you're doing, and especially if you're an
Mhm.
author, think before you post. Is it worth getting into this fight with an internet stranger? Is it really
No.
worth your time? Maybe not.
No. It's worth your time as writing and
Yeah.
editing and not really
And
you can't win
reading.
those battles.
No,
They're
no.
unwinnable.
So those are my updates.
Yeah. Well, I'm just happy to be back in the
Yes.
saddle again. I
Yes.
was out, knocked out with
Yes.
norovirus, and I haven't been that sick in a really long time.
Well, glad to have you back. So you missed
Yeah,
a couple episodes, which was tragic, but
yeah, I was so
yeah.
sad. I was like
But we had friends
laying in
fill in.
bed, voice messaging and texting, going, "I'm not gonna make
Ah!
it." Yeah, it was awful. Yeah, it forced me to rest. I was non-productive at all, like things suffered. But I'm excited to get back into edits um for my next book. But I did get right before I got sick, I got my short story out for an anthology that I'm a part of for Romance
Great.
Atlanta.
That's great.
And I'm super excited about that particular story being out in the wild and hopefully finding some new readers. So for me, that was great. But yeah, just be back among the living and feeling human again is top notch. So I'm I'm excited to be back. So that's probably my update there. So
That's
with
great.
that,
Yeah.
let's do a hot seat topic. I don't know
Oh,
if I'm prepared.
okay. This is a good one. What is the one fashion trend you hope never comes back?
Huh. I guess hairstyles aren't a fashion trend, are they? Are
They
they?
are.
Beehives. Like, no,
Oh, yeah.
never.
They
Like,
don't
I see these cute pictures of my mother with this
like the
cute,
50s beehive. Yeah.
yeah, and it's adorable, but no. Like I did the 80s bangs with Aquanet at one time in my life. So
Yeah.
no, no. And next one, parachute pants. Never. Mm-mm. No.
No.
Mm-mm.
Well, they're trying.
I
They're
know.
trying with the utterly ridiculous, and anyone can come at me for this, the barrel jeans and barrel pants.
Okay. So I do have some barrel jeans.
Stop it.
I do. But they're Judy blue and they're adorable. I don't know why it takes me back to the 80s, but girls got big thighs and they just work.
I don't get it. You look
I
like
know.
you just got off a horse. I don't get it. Like, I don't understand it. And no, you cannot put me in those.
Well, they're a
Anyway,
little more fashionable than that. But I remember the old ones. Yeah.
you cannot convince me that I hope that dies forever. The other thing is, and they tried to make this come back, but the stirrup pants, I remember Express tried this with stirrup pants. Stirrup pants were like it was basically to keep your pants, your
Inside your
skinny
boots.
pants inside your boots, but
Yeah.
there was a little stirrup on the bottom. And like the bodysuits and stirrup pants where we just had these tight things.
Yeah.
No. And they're still out there, but we just don't speak their name. But I did have some bodysuits when I was actually could wear a bodysuit.
I just remember the stirrups being elastic and they just bothered me.
They'd hurt too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'd be too tight or too loose. I get to the point where I just kick it in the back of my heel. Like you can just tuck your pants in. Like that's why I love leggings as they are. Do not give me the stirrup. That's the evolution. No, we don't need them.
Plus, as romance writers, we're always thinking like they're hard to get out of in love situations. So,
not
thank you.
conducive. Not conducive. Yeah. We're ending on that. Okay. Thank you for listening to us today. Don't forget to give us a review and rating wherever you listen to the podcast. It really helps us with visibility. And if you're listening and interested in catching the exclusive Author Next Door After Dark this month, we're breaking down the barrier and talking about why spice works or doesn't work in books. So make sure and sign up for our newsletter to get access. It's the only way you can see it. Next month is a new month. And where it's March, we will be standing for and talking about marketing.
Gross.
I know. It's such a bad word. Anyway, till then, keep writing, keep doing. Bye. We're so glad you joined us for this episode of The Author Next Door.
Writing is a long game, and it's one best played with community, curiosity, and a little grace for yourself along the way.
Keep showing up, keep learning, and keep telling stories only you can tell.
We'll see you next week, right here next door.